Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We're going to have a pre-show, musical pre-show we're going to talk about, and then we'll get into some of the action from last night and something that has not happened in 49 years of a competition between two division and geographical rivals. But let's start with the pre-show, Russ.
Although I heard Rick Jenrette say it, but that's the clue. So let's talk a little music. There's a lot of tours this summer, and some of them are real, and some of them, for lack of a better term, are Memorex. And that's because you might have
live or Memorex.
Yeah, I know. You might have one real band member in it. You might have two in some cases. You might have two and then one that's been in there for maybe 10, 15 years. So when we go through some of them, it's kind of like, do we think there's enough real band there to see? And then if there is, would you see them?
Well, let me just throw this out because I thought about this, and maybe there has to be an exception to the rule, but maybe not. Everybody remembers the Leonard Skinner plane crash tragedy.
Yes.
And a few years after, there was a band, the Rosington Collins Band, which a couple members of, and they started their own band. I don't think they played Skinner material. They maybe during concerts and stuff like that because they didn't have their own enough material, but they put out their own albums. Then a few years later, there was a Leonard Skinner band that did not include, I think, did not even include Rosington or Collins. That included Ronnie Van Zant's younger brother Donnie.
Yeah.
Now, can we say that there's a caveat to the rule because they died in a plane? And I'm not laughing at it, but they died. All of them died.
Still not real enough for me to see them. No.
Okay. All right. So let's continue.
So that's the standard. So first off, let's get the Genesis yearly rumor out of the way. It's a bunch of baloney. We know what's going to happen. Peter Gabriel's going to say no. He's going to wait a few weeks until he feels like everybody's really waiting and chomping at the bit, and then he'll say no.
Until I see them like the Eagles at a press conference where they're all sitting there and they've released tour dates, I'm going to believe it's never happening.
Right. Tickets actually have to go on sale.
Right. And believe me, if they do go on sale, they'll evaporate in about 3 seconds.
They will. Okay, so that's out of the way. Now, this morning, I wake up to, John Anderson has a tour for a new album. I think it's got promise because it's a compilation album of a lot of different people he's worked with, guys like Geddy Lee, but also Steve Howe's on it. And so John recently, I guess when he was finishing up this album, played with Steve, and they sort of got along. So he's basically left the door open to play with Yes again because he's basically closed the door on Anderson, Rabin, and Wakeman, which we kind of figured there might be a limited shelf life. We were hoping for an album, but obviously the album didn't happen, and John blames it on management. That's fine. End of the day, if John Anderson joins Yes, and Alan White will still be in there, even though I know he had some neck issues, but I think they're fixed, and Steve Howe's there, and it's Jeff Downs, that's good enough for me. I go see him again.
Yeah, it seems that there's two houses now. It's like,
well, now it seems like this is the only house now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Wakeman and Rabin are going to do on their own. Yeah. I mean, you never really had, unless it was the Union tour, you never had Rabin and Howe in the same band.
Right. Actually, I know what Rick Wakeman's up to. There's a new show on Netflix by Ricky Gervais.
Yes.
I think it's like Life After Death. It's really good. If you like Ricky Gervais, you'll love it. If you don't like Ricky Gervais, you'll hate it. But Rick Wakeman commented on how good the show was, and Ricky Gervais answered him back. So there's another guy who probably is a fan, or at least of Yes, at very least of Wakeman, and that's interesting.
Anybody wants to be amused, go onto YouTube and search Rick Wakeman Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, it's the best speech ever.
It's the best speech ever. He has people rolling in the aisles because he's just it's politically incorrect and it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, we talked about a couple other bands like
Fleetwood Mac. That's
No, I did my research.
You researched this heavy. You did.
John McVeigh, who was the original, not the original, but the bass player through the most popular era of Fleetwood Mac. He had colon cancer. He's 73 years old. He beat it. He is on the tour, and it's Christine McVie, John McVie, Mick Fleetwood, and Stevie Nicks from the original band. The only member of the Rumors band, the popular incarnation of Fleetwood Mac, is Lindsey Buckingham, who's not on tour because he is suing the band for them excluding him from the tour.
Right.
And he's been replaced by Neil Finn of Crowded House, who's great, but he's not Lindsey Buckingham. And Mike Campbell, the former guitar player from the former.
He's a really great guitarist.
He's a really great guitar player from the Traveling Wilburys and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Right. But it's enough real band. It passes the sniff test.
So I would say, is the line of demarcation, is it 2 members? Is it 3 members?
It's at least 2 originals and 1 that's been in there for over a decade.
So Anderson, Wakeman, and Rabin would have passed the test.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think these days, especially when you're talking about guys in their 60s, and again, and maybe, I'm not looking at the chat room right now. There might be some folks that don't care because they're older, but these are musicians that have stood the test of time. So I think if you get that many of them together, you're in good shape. Now I'm looking to see.
While you're looking, the Eagles. I don't think we thought that the Eagles, the current incarnation of the Eagles, passed the smell test.
It doesn't.
Because okay, you have Henley, you have Walsh. I mean, Walsh was an add-on.
Yeah.
He like halfway through, you replaced Bernie Ledden, and Bernie Ledden was on the tour for a while. I don't know if he's still anymore, but Timothy B. Schmidt was the second bass player. So the only original member is Henley. Unless Bernie Ledden is touring, the only original member is Henley. Felder is no longer part of it because they hate each other.
I will tell you, go see Felder on his own. He's fantastic.
Oh yeah, he's a great guitar player, phenomenal.
He really is.
But it's Timothy B. Schmidt, Henley, Joe Walsh, Declan Fry, who's the son of Glenn Fry, and Vince Gill. And I love Vince Gill, but he's not Don Felder, and he's not Glenn Fry. So it's like, I mean,
and the Eagles ripped people off for too long too with their ticket prices. They were outrageous. Like everything was a farewell tour every year, and it was like $200 a seat. It was just silly.
Now, I know.
I've got one here with
one, and I got one. Then we'll start the show.
Right. So Foreigner, who I love, right? I saw Foreigner Sticks at the Garden once back in about '85. That was a great show, and I saw a Foreigner 4 show. I've seen Foreigner with their current lineup. So you told me that Lou Gramm might be playing with them. Now I know he played some shows with them, but it doesn't look like he's on tour with them. It looks like so they really just have Mick Jones. And Tom Gimbel's been around since '92 and everybody else since '04, '05. So it doesn't count. Although I will give you a caveat and tell you these guys are very good, but it still doesn't count in my book.
Well, the one that doesn't count, even though it's like one of the original members is not there, there are 2 instances of that.
It's going to be the Monkees?
No. Two instances of the most important member of the band not being there. Okay. One is Queen. You have Adam Lambert or Paul Rodgers replacing Freddie Mercury, and of course, Freddie Mercury is gone. Unfortunately, I would love to see him live, but it can't. And I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't accept that's. They say Queen with Adam Lambert.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it's Journey with Steve Tajiri instead of Steve Perry. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't care if you have Neil Schon and the original drummer and the original bass player. They're inconsequential. Steve Perry is the voice of that band, and if you don't have him, even if you have a guy from the Philippines who's a karaoke wonderkind, and that's how he got the job. I mean, I don't know anything about him.
Wait, which band is this that we're talking about again?
Journey.
Oh, Journey. Yeah, I did see them once.
I think the guy got the job because he did Great Journey karaoke or something like that. He's from the Philippines.
He did, but actually the drummer, who I think is the second drummer, but he's been there for a long time.
Right.
He actually sounds more like Perry than the other lead singer, but I still don't think they passed that test or at least the criteria we're talking about. Even Queen, Roger Taylor's there. So hold on, Roger Taylor's there.
It's the other three members: John Deacon, Brian May, Roger Taylor, and Adam Lambert, and Brian May, and Paul Rogers. It's all obviously there's Freddie's no longer here.
I think I'm going to give Queen a pass on it. I am,
but Journey I can't.
No, we won't give Journey a pass.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's start the show. I'm sure people like, is this a hockey show or a freaking music?
Go to a hockey game and tell me you don't hear a Queen song, and then call me back.
I think we heard 3 of them yesterday. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. There were 4 games in the NHL last night. We'll talk about those. We'll talk about a signing that we didn't mention yesterday. And maybe take some questions in the chat. X should be back tomorrow for the show. We'll start with the game that I went to, Russ, and as typical of the Leafs and when they play in Buffalo, it was, I think, 90% Leaf fans. And this I did a radio spot this morning on Buffalo radio, and they were saying, the fact that 90% of the the fan base in Buffalo sold their tickets or left them open so Leaf fans could buy them, is proof that this organization is going nowhere. And I'm like, no, it's not, because even when they were going somewhere, the Leaf fans would spend money to buy tickets. I mean, I ran into
fans. They travel, they go. It doesn't matter if the team's winning or not.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this is the reason why. I ran into a couple Leaf fans before the game yesterday. I asked them, I says, where did you get your tickets? How did you get them? Secondary market. They paid like $290 Canadian, which is a little over 200 American, for each seat. It was in the lower bowl in the 100 level, about 20 rows up from the glass. Yeah. Those seats at Scotiabank Arena would run you 500 Canadian. Yeah. Those would be platinum seats, I believe.
So the season ticket holders from the Sabres, they're at a local bar watching the game and drinking with that money, and the Leafs fans are going to the game.
They're paying for 10% of their season tickets.
Yeah.
With the money, if with the money that they get through, if it's like StubHub, where they get, they pay a fee to StubHub, but they get most of that money. So I don't blame them. The Sabres aren't going anywhere. And if you want to go and contend with a whole bunch of Leaf fans, if you want to avoid that, then you just sell the tickets. I get that. But the game itself, the Leafs dominated shots on goal. There were over 40 shots on Carter Hutton. Carter Hutton, played pretty well. And this is the thing that, from the Leaf perspective, I think is a little bit disconcerting. They dominated that game the first 2.5 periods. Right. Dominated it. They were only up 3-1. And once Alex Nylander scored to make it 3-2, it was the second of back-to-back games. They fell back a little bit. They held on. They got an empty net goal. But the Leafs had over 40 shots. They had at least a couple power plays, maybe 3. They only scored 3 goals, and the game was against a team like Buffalo, and that game was in question up until the final minute of regulation. I'm being a little glass is half empty, but when you dominate like that, you should be scoring more goals, and the game should be a laugher. It shouldn't be a close game.
Maybe. I saw a great compete level from Eichel when I was watching the game. He seemed frustrated at times when that puck went in off of him. He felt horrible. You could tell. But Matthews really was on it. Like, Matthews was locked in. That was a great game for Austin Matthews. It showed his puck possession. It showed the ability to sort of hold up on the rush and wait for guys to set up. He circled around and nobody could get the puck from him, and then he would make a play. Really was having a great game.
They seem to bring out the best in each other. I mean, it's a competitive thing. I mean, I don't think there's like any animosity between the two. I think they're friendly because they both come through USA Hockey and they played on teams together before, like in the World Cup of Hockey. But I think that Eichel, is sick of hearing about Matthews being in Buffalo and Matthews being in Toronto, and Eichel steps up his game against Matthews, and then Matthews responds by he knows that Eichel is going to step up his game, so he does the same thing. So the one thing about that game last night, though, is the big guns came out for the Leafs. Tavares scored, Marner scored, Matthews scored. They got an empty net goal. So in that sense, they played pretty decent defensively as opposed to
Nylander scored.
Yes, a Nylander, not the well, one almost scored at one end. William hit the post, and then Tavares cashed in the rebound, and Alex with a nice shot scored his first of the year. And I was talking to some people in the press box last night and asked me like what the viewpoint on Nylander is, and they said, well, he's only gone through 1 year of his ELC,
right?
And he might be the exception to the rule in terms of the Sabres and in terms of Botterill moving out the Tim Murray guys, because he's moved out the Justin Baileys, he's moved out the Nick Baptistes. He hasn't moved out Nylander. Now, what they might be doing is playing Nylander so people will say, well, okay, maybe he's good, and then he gets a good return for him. And
I get the feeling they're keeping him still. I do. I saw some flashes. He did score. We got to remember, he's only playing 10 minutes a game, 10, 11 minutes. So right now, you can't judge the amount of offense he's getting when he's not getting in all the right situations. I already see that there's still articles, is he a flop or not? Like, look, he's 21 years old. Give it a little rest. There's still time for this kid. And so I do think they still feel like there is time for him, and I think it's smart that they are getting him some games now, even if they mean sending him back. I mean, Rochester, are they in a playoff?
I believe so. And
he was let him play in the playoffs. You know, give him a little taste here and let him go back in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think the key for the Sabres, because there's a lot of hue and cry right now about Phil Housley. And again, I was talking to some people in the press box last night and saying, you know, what do you think, is Housley in danger? And unless Terry Pagula offers Joel Quenneville $10 million a year, I don't think Housley's being fired. And this is and again, this is not. I'm not trying to insult the Buffalo Sabres or the Buffalo fan base, because I wouldn't do that, because some of them are my friends and I don't want to get punched in the back of the head.
Right.
This is not a primo job right now. It's if they fire Housley, okay, what teams do we know are going to be looking for coaches next year? Anaheim, it might be Eakins, but it could be an open search. So Anaheim,
right?
LA definitely, Edmonton definitely, maybe Minnesota if they fire Boudreau.
Minnesota, St. Louis, but
I think that they may give Berube the job since he got them going in the second half.
Depends if Quenneville calls fast enough or not.
Right, Philadelphia,
definitely.
Okay, so of all those,
and again, that doesn't mean Scott Gordon's out of a job. Just means they're going to inquire and see if they're in the running.
So of all those,
and by the way, the other mystery one, or still could be like Columbus,
or Florida,
Florida too.
So of all of those, all of them, all encompassing, where does Buffalo list? Probably in terms of coaches wanting to go there, in terms of what they would be paid, in terms of what you have to work with. With Florida, you have Barkov, you have Huberdeau, you have Ekblad. There'll be some problems.
Columbus coming. I mean, they've got some promise there.
Yeah, Columbus. You know, I don't know if they're going to fire Tortorella. If they make the playoffs, I think he's safe. LA, you've still got Doughty and Kopitar, but there are problems. Anaheim,
and maybe Jack Hughes.
Edmonton, you have McDavid. Minnesota, you've got a bunch of players. I mean, Buffalo is Eichel, Middlestad, Dahlin, very young. You don't know what they are yet.
Yeah, see, Minnesota has more of the defense that I think Quenneville likes. That mix of veterans, like a guy like Suter, guys he knows he could put out there for 25 minutes. Brodin, guys, horses. They have real horses.
Right. And I could see that he would be comfortable in the Central Division.
St. Louis has horses too on defense.
Yep. Yeah. So I think Quenneville's staying in the West.
Most likely.
But my point is that unless Terry Pegula opens up the checkbook and says, I will pay you anything, I don't think he's getting a big name head coach. So why do you fire Housley if you're going to basically hire another Housley type, another young coach, his first job? Maybe you find something better. If you're blaming it all on Housley, I think that's sort of that blame is sort of misdirected.
It's easy. It's lazy. It's like it's more than that. Be happy that the team was a lot better this year. Be happy that you got what you got out of Jeff Skinner. That was massive. Yeah. Maybe you get to, keep Skinner. That's the hope. And if you get to keep Skinner, this whole year was worth it. Like, that's how you have to look at it. It's still a long game for them. There's no quick fix for them.
Well, the problem is that there still hasn't been any kind of finality on the whole Skinner front. And if you get to the end of the season and he's still not signed, then he's probably going to go to the 5-day window before before July 1st. And then you don't know where you stand. And then you have to basically plan on what happens if you can't sign him. It's going to be like the Islanders before Tavares left. You might get him back, but you might not.
The problem is there's nobody good enough on the Bills to give a call to Jeff Skinner to sort of sway him. Do you go back to somebody from the past? Do you have Jim Kelly call him? I don't know.
No, he's too busy doing ECMC commercials. Okay. Now that's a local hospital, by the way. Okay, let's talk about the game that everybody was talking about this morning that I saw none of because I was at the Sabres game, which was Tampa Bay and Washington, as a preview of the potential Eastern Conference final. I saw the highlights. I saw a 5-4 victory for Tampa. It was emotional. It was fast-paced. It was aggressive. And that's what you want out of playoff hockey. What surprised me, Russ, is that they played this way in the regular season, risking injury, for a game that basically had no meaning other than pride.
Because they both wanted that little, not bragging rights, but just that little, see, we're the team. And you know what I learned from this game? They're both the team. And that's what we all thought that they were. I mean, honestly, I didn't know who really thought that Washington was going to fall out of it. We all give Tampa a little slight edge. You have to, but Washington's right there. I will tell you, who had a great game was Jensen. That was the first time where I was like, maybe that contract was worth it for him. He really had a terrific game. Now, Kempney's injured, right? That's
did he get injured last night? I don't know.
I think he got injured. For the chat room will tell me because I was flipping around. But I liked what I saw. Yeah, lower body injury.
Okay.
So I liked what I saw. I thought that an interesting moment in that game, right, was Ryan McDonough pushing down Alex Ovechkin to the ice. Now, here's what I can tell you about Ryan McDonough. I know him obviously from being on the Rangers. I also know that he is a workout freak, and he is freakishly strong, and he probably doesn't get credit enough for that because at the position he plays, he's not always leveling guys, but he wins a lot of those one-on-one battles. Well, he made it known yesterday that he was going to win that battle and make it very public, and he did, and Ovechkin came up pissed off. And I thought, you know what? That's a good tactical ploy there by McDonough to kind of show, hey, you know what? Watch out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited at the prospect of that being a potential Eastern Conference final match. I think there are a lot of teams that
great.
Have something to say about it, though, like Pittsburgh and Boston. They're going to try to upset the apple cart when it comes to that potential meeting. Okay, two other games out west. One was the 7-4 victory by the Canucks over the Ottawa Senators. I mean, both teams are out of it, but did you catch any of this, Russ?
I did. I saw Max Verano got his first NHL goal. He's got 2 points in 3 games. Former Princeton guy. I talked to him about him on the show. I've written about him for years. I've covered him for 4 years. I've never interviewed him because a lot of times with the college games, I don't go down and interview. I just really go to check out the guys and write about them and learn what they're about. This is really rewarding for me to see this kid do this well because a lot of times with college free agents, there's a lot of hype, and I get it, and the guys don't reach the hype. But then there's also the dismissive tactic. Well, how many of these guys actually make it and do something? And he is the one that I've been trumpeting from that team, saying, I believe he'll make it and do something. And I told you guys, I think he'll get 40, 45 points a year when he plays a full year. Right now, he's riding a little hot streak, so you can't go by the small window. But he does everything you want an NHL to do. He's got speed. He's not afraid to shoot. He plays a 200-foot game. He brings the puck up the ice. He does all those things and has been doing them. Mm-hmm. So I don't expect that to change for him. He's not a first or a second liner. He's a third line guy. But a third line guy in this league, you get 40, 45 points, you'll have a nice career.
Right. And the other game was Winnipeg and Anaheim. Winnipeg gets a 3-0 shutout over the Ducks. They move, I believe they move with that, they move ahead of Nashville. They still have a game in hand, and now they're a point ahead of Nashville in the battle for the Central Division. One thing I heard, and it's seeing the Predators play the Leafs, I was a little surprised to hear this stat with the players that they have. They're 30th or 31st in the league in the power play. And when you're considering a team going into the playoffs, you want a team that's really good on both special teams. I mean, especially the power play, because if, we know 5-on-5, it's basically shut down hockey. So you have to take advantage of when you have the man advantage. And with Subban and with Johansson and Forsberg and Arvidsson and all the offensive firepower that they have, I mean, they're not a juggernaut, but they have good, talented players. For them to be last, that's scary. I mean, in terms of their facts.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. Sometimes things change when you get in the playoffs, though. We have seen that.
Now, a couple of little bits of news, contract-wise.
Let me go with the funniest here.
Okay.
And just like I've been saying, and look, I haven't said it with any conviction, and I haven't written it, but clearly Winnipeg is winning games without Dustin Byfuglien. I'm not saying they're better without him. I just knew they'd have to play different, and that's sort of interesting to me. But Brad Marchand didn't like an article that Joe Haggerty wrote the other day, because the lead-in.
I was going to bring this up.
The lead-in for Haggerty's article is, what we learned in the Bruins' 5-0 dominant defensive win over the Islanders. Are the Bruins better without Torrey Krug in their lineup? At least defensively, there's an argument to be made. Brad Marchand answered it and said, what kind of garbage is this, Hags? You don't even watch the games, and you just stand at the snack bar the whole time. Wow.
Well, I have to say that the snack bar at TD Garden,
it is great.
I've never been there, but I've been told the desserts are fantastic.
No, it's great.
Yeah. And I was I will wholeheartedly admit, I was at the Sabres game, and before the game, I made sure I got a couple of items and in between periods as well, but I was there watching every minute of the game on the ice. So I managed my time, but I mean, this is Marchand sticking up for a teammate and also backing up his vote as the worst trash talker and the best trash talker by the NHLPA. So he's resorting to form. Yeah, it's nice that he didn't use his valuable time on Twitter to talk up Mitch Marner so he could try to get his salary up to $12 million a year. So
he's entertaining. We have to give him that.
Yes. Now a couple contracts. Now, okay, I'm asking you to clarify here, because I'm pretty sure if a player, when we're talking about the last expansion draft,
right,
with Vegas, if a player was signed up until July 1st, meaning he was a UFA going into the expansion draft, that player was still, I believe that player was still eligible to fill one of the roles. Like, remember,
because you don't lose, the guy is not off the team until July 1st. So yeah.
Right. Remember how teams had to expose players who played a certain amount of games, and they had to be under contract, but technically they were under contract when the expansion draft happened. It's just a question of whether a team like Seattle or a team like Vegas would take a guy who was a UFA in a week or something like that. But it did satisfy the eligibility, I do believe. And the reason I bring that up is because the Leafs signed Nick Patan this morning to a 2-year contract. That means through the 2021 season. And the draft the expansion draft is in late June before the NHL draft and a week before free agency. So technically, if Patan plays enough games to qualify, then he would be able to be exposed by the Leafs. And I think that might have been the reason why they signed him for 2 years and not just one.
Yeah. But again, he has to be healthy at the time. He has to still be on the team at the time.
Right.
It just right now he looks like he could be that guy.
But it's a question of how many games he's going to get played.
That's
because
another whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where the battle between Babcock and Dubas, which people are trying to sort of tamp down. It's not really a battle. I'm sorry. When the coach comes out and says our team is not deep enough 2 days in a row.
This isn't like they hate each other battle. It's a bug up his rear end is what it is. It's bothering him, and Babcock has never been somebody to hold back. Right.
Now we have to give Kevin Allen a bit of credit.
Why? Why are we giving him credit?
Because Jimmy Howard signed a 1-year, $4 million contract with the Red Wings, so he didn't get traded at the deadline. And the indication was the Wings wanted to bring him back, so they brought him back and didn't have to give him a 3 or 4 year deal. They gave him
a nice year. He's worthy of the salary.
I'm surprised that he didn't. I'm surprised that he didn't get more in terms of term, unless he's just interested in going year by year right now. I mean, I don't think he's 35. I think he's 33 or 30.
I guess he likes the pizza.
No, that's in Toronto. They don't have pizza. They don't think the Little Caesars. You mean?
Yeah, their commercials pizza too. It used to be.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, come on, Mike.
Oh boy,
snob.
Oh, the thing I brought up about 49 years just to finish off on that point.
We gave enough clues.
Yeah, the Leafs win in Buffalo. It was the first time in the history of the two franchises that the Leafs swept the Sabres in a season series. Now, you got to remember that most of the time when they were in the old Adams division, they played each other 8 times. Yeah, so I'd be surprised if anybody swept anybody 8-0 unless it was Montreal sweeping, Oakland or something. Yeah. They always had like one. It was always like one weird team in a division. It was like Buffalo, Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Oakland, or it was always like some team.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was fun to watch that game because Jenrette is really smooth as silk. Still, it's amazing. But the other thing was, they pointed out that Ken Dryden and his brother played there in a game, and they both came in as backups.
Yeah, Dave Dryden played for the Sabres, and
I didn't even know there was a Dave Dryden. Yeah,
Dave Dryden was with the Sabres, I think 72, 73, something like that.
Yeah, that's when I just got into hockey. I had no idea he existed, and the fact that they both got in there as backups, that's pretty amazing. I thought that was cool. You obviously don't care, but I thought it was cool.
No, I do.
You marginalized it. That's fine.
Do we have any questions in the chat?
I don't know. All right, let me look. Dave Dryden actually played in 1962 for the Rangers, which proves my point. Everybody plays for the Rangers.
So he was the older brother.
Yeah, he played 1 game for the Rangers. He played for Cleveland, Buffalo, Chicago, the Oilers, Oilers in the WHA. Oh, who's this team actually? He played in a few for the WHA. He did play for Edmonton in 79-80.
Yeah. People don't realize
the Chicago Cougars. Mike, can you read the first question? My dog has to go to the bathroom. Or look for a question.
I'll look for a question while Russ is doing a bathroom break here on the Hockey Buzzcast. Just one thing, I'll mention this. I know that Eck mentioned in his blog something about the Global Series starting the 2019-20 season. I know that Victor Hedman and the Lightning are going to be playing against the Sabres. I would assume it's in Stockholm. Dahlin being the young Swedish star, and Hedman being the more established Norris Trophy caliber star. And I mean, I don't have a big problem with it, but I was talking to Russ earlier about the folly of Major League Baseball starting their season a week early to play games in Japan between Seattle and Oakland, and these games count and they had like Ichiro Suzuki, a 45-year-old Ichiro Suzuki playing in these games. It was like a goodbye tour.
Yeah, his last 2 games.
Yeah, it just sort of demeaned the meaning of those games. It's like, I'm sorry, like I expect like, opening day of Major League Baseball to be in one of the home buildings, and there to be sort of reverence for the game, and not like, hey, come and see Ichiro. The last time you see Ichiro.
I did enjoy the Ichiro moment, but I get what you're saying. You could tell that the teams don't love it because like their pitchers are going like 4 innings, and so they don't want to ruin their pitching staff on these games. All right, let me look in the chat room real quick.
Yeah, John Tavares has scored the most goals in a single season since Matt Sundin.
Boy, I got that one right. I'll tell you that.
He scored his 41st last night. Matthews.
What was the weird goal? That was the one that came off of Eichel's shin guard, right?
No. Actually, all the goals were weird. The Matthews goal was a centering pass from Janssen that hit off Matthews' foot. The Tavares goal was one that hit the Nylander hit the post, and the puck bounced up, landed right in front of him in the open net, and then Marner hit Ristolainen and skate. So they were all weird.
Yeah. Lord wants to know any word on Zuccarello. He must be close to returning. I haven't heard word one. It's a broken arm. I mean, even if you use the hyperbaric chamber, I don't know.
They said minimum 4 weeks, and that was at the deadline, and we're not even at 3 weeks yet. So
so ask next week.
Yeah, I would say probably, ideally, they'd want to get him in for a game or two before the playoffs.
Cam wants to know, who do we think will be a good coach for the Oilers next year? Who do you guys think is a bad idea for the Oilers? Good idea would be Joel Quenneville, but I don't know if he would do it. Bad idea would be
Dallas Eakins.
Well, they already did that. Alain Vigneault.
You think that would be a bad idea?
I do think it would be a bad idea. I think in that market, it's not a good fit for him.
I mean, that's a tough one. It's got to be somebody with gravitas. And
they got to go with the GM again. I just go with go get Hextall and Pryor first, and then build it out from there. That's the way I would do it.
Would they hire Dave Haxtell as the coach?
No, I don't think they would go that route.
Okay.
Because I think Nicholson would block that. Like, there would have to be, Nicholson's going to be in on it too. So from a coaching perspective, maybe I don't think you can get a college coach for the Edmonton market. So I'd say that's out. It's tough. I think if Boudreau were to get fired, you might have to look at a guy like Boudreau.
Boudreau in Edmonton. Boudreau with McDavid.
Yeah, I mean, look, if nothing else, what players do like playing for Boudreau. We have to admit that.
Yeah, okay. Any more questions?
Any more questions? I don't think so, but I'm going to give one last run through.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Last run through here.
Oh, by the way, while you're looking,
today
apparently was the day that the Capitals go to visit the White House.
Oh, it is.
And according to this update, there will be no ceremony or media availability during the Capitals visit, which means they don't want.
No wonder I didn't get a thing for that. Wow.
I was to say, which means they wanted to make sure that it doesn't get out that Vladimir Putin is there as well.
Yeah. Lance wants to know, Detroit's got some money. Should they get Jake Gardner? I say no way, because you can't risk it with a guy with a bad back. If he comes back, plays a strong playoffs, plays every game, plays 20 minutes a game, maybe.
Yeah, I honestly, I was again talking to some people last night. Gardner hasn't even stepped on the ice.
Yeah.
The last game he played was February 25th against Buffalo. He hasn't played since. Hasn't been on the ice at the practice facility. Nothing. And as you know, you can't, especially from a back injury, you can't just step right out.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be out there for a couple weeks doing practice, getting your conditioning back up to speed. And it doesn't look it so. And based on what Babcock said last week, I don't think we're ever going to see Gardner. If we see him next year, that means they've re-signed him.
Right.
I don't think we'll see Jake Gardner in a Leaf uniform again. So
okay, all
right.
We'll leave on that happy note.
Yeah, there you go. Joy to the world. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. Sorry for the abbreviated show. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.